Hello, Wobbly Phil here. Last week's video ranking the Honda CBX, Kawasaki Z1000 and Suzuki's GS1000 got me thinking. Specifically, it got me thinking about the GS, a motorcycle I'd never really much thought about before. By the time it came on the scene in the late 1970s, I'd already been seduced by Honda and Kawasaki and was still mentally clinging to the wreckage of the British bike industry. But on closer inspection, the GS is a cracker. Could it be better even than a Kawasaki Z1?
At Suzuki, we believe performance is more than an awesome display of power.
Forget your troubles, get on Suzuki. You're gonna chase all your cares away.
Suzuki was a bit behind the curve when it kicked off its air-cooled four-stroke GS range in 1976. Honda and Kawasaki had got there years before, but that meant a few lessons could be learnt from the competition. Often rumoured to have been a rip-off of the Kawasaki Z1's double overhead cam 900cc lump, I think the most we can say is that the GS750 and 1000cc engines took inspiration from the Green Team's Halo bike. Claimed BHP sat at around 90 on the litre bike, 8 more than the Z1. And while the Z1 could by all accounts reach a top speed of 132 miles per hour, some tests reckoned the GS could pip it past the post at 135. The GS was hauling around a quarter of a metric ton, about the same as the Z1. Fairly evenly matched then, but apart from cooing over the stats and the looks, what was it really like to ride? And did it really transcend the Z1? To decide that, I've turned to a contemporary road test republished in this book, Superbike Road Tests, written by the highly respected motorcycling journalist Graham Sanderson. Mr. Sanderson describes the bike as having a devastating impact when it was launched on the British bike scene in the winter of 1978 and trampled all over Kawasaki's reputation for producing the high-performance fours which it had enjoyed for the previous 6 years since the launch of the Z1. To quote directly from Mr. Sanderson, even to a road tester used to sampling all manner of exotic machinery, the Suzuki was stunning. You would dismount after your first ride, virtually speechless and shaking your head in disbelief at its staggering performance. High praise indeed, and already more than enough to get a red-blooded biker all hot and bothered. Apparently, this machine so went beyond the superbike category that it sat alone in the Megabike class, not a term that I recall catching on much. It had transistorized ignition, self-cancelling indicators, and in later versions, slotted disc brakes, so that you could actually stop in the wet, a revelation for the era. The GS went through a number of iterations, including a shaft drive version, and it gained larger Mikuni carbs, in the process enjoying success in production machine races, thus apparently proving its handling chops and the bulletproofness of its engine. Add to that, faultless starting, not something my Trident could be accused of, rapid throttle response, tractability, light, smooth controls, and its ability to sit at 100 miles an hour at about 6,500 RPM, and still being capable of neck-wrenching acceleration of mammoth proportions from 120, and I'm like, where do I sign? But, as ever, dear viewer, every upside in life comes with a downside, and despite the GS looking every bit the Z1 beta, according to the 458-page 3 Fills Production Guidelines Handbook, I'm contractually obliged to offer a balancing view. This bike, the GS1000S on eBay, was what initially ignited my long-distance lusting for a GS. Whilst not a fan of bikini fairings, the fairing does seem to complement the entire bike in this case. These are sometimes known as the Cooley replicas, after the much-lauded racer who won the Suzuka 8-hour endurance race in Japan on these bikes. Then I found an excellent 3-part video by YouTuber Radial9, who seems to have owned the same bike for 40 years. I've popped a link in the description so you can take a look for yourselves. This chap is clearly in love with his GS, but he does mention some downers along the way, including unsightly welding on the frame, the fact that it is heavy and quite long, wide and high, meaning changing lines on the road is a bit of a grunt, and the suspension's pretty soft, not helped by having to adjust the air forks with the aid of a petrol station airline. Oh, and it would bottom out on fast bends. On long treks in hot climes, which these days means anywhere south of Tromsø or north of Tierra del Fuego, it would get very hot indeed. Most disconcerting was the bike's tendency to go into a tank slapper at between 90 and 100 miles an hour, due most likely to the shape of the fairing, which was actually intended to help with stability. In his review, Mr. Sanderson also mentions some fishtailing and other adverse handling effects should the rear tyre become worn, and back in those days the bike could shred one in less than 3,000 miles. Hopefully rubber has become a bit more robust since then. By 1980, Suzuki was sticking 4 valves in each cylinder, which was now what they called a twin-swirl combustion chamber. The GS1000 morphed into the GSX 1100, and before long the legendary Suzuki Katana was born. But that's a story for another day. So, does the GS1000 beat the Z1? On looks and thrills alone, I think it does. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please consider liking, subscribing, commenting and sharing to let YouTube know we're doing something right here at 3 Fills. Thank you.
Suzuki, designed to be the most trouble-free motorcycles in the world.